This is Joe,
Michelle,
Melissa,
and Shannon with More Than a Sniff, where we talk about everything dog.
from training to nutrition,
from behavior modification to grooming,
from vet visits to dog parks,
From getting to know us to having guests. Today we're going to talk about... This is Joe and Shannon here, and I just kind of give you a little background as far as how I found you and what we're doing here. We have a weekly podcast, and our series is on dogs with jobs. And I have always, my entire life, had, it's on my bucket list to go on a sled dog adventure. And so as I was digging and checking out, I found you guys actually quite a long time ago. And when we decided to talk on our podcast about dogs with jobs, your company came into mind, and that's why we contacted you. So thank you for your time, and definitely want to talk a little bit more about what you do and your business, and more importantly, the jobs that sled dogs do and what you're looking for. So if you'll take a little bit of time and tell us about you and what you do and your dogs, that would be great.
Sure. So we have a business where we do various tours with people via dog team. And our business model is where we are hands-on. I mean, our whole goal is to get people to participate. So they are getting to harness the dogs, and they are getting to drive the sleds, and they're getting to work with the dogs to try to get them as much as possible to have an authentic dog sled experience where, you know, it's as close to if they had their own dogs as possible. Of course, everything is guided. They're not, allowed to go out by themselves or anything.
Sure.
And we have trips from partial day trips to multi-day trips. We kind of specialize in, we have a yurt camp, which, is a kind of a plush camping way to get people in a heated environment, but out in the middle of nowhere and truly experience the wilderness that way.
Yep. Gotcha. And what, how many dogs, I know you guys you'll rehome dogs or career change dogs as well, but tell us a little bit about your dog teams and the role that they play.
Well, we usually maintain around 100 dogs. And you're quite right. We're always, if a sled dog has got to want to be a sled dog.
Yeah.
And, doing tours, there's a little bit of pressure. They've got to go a lot. And so if they don't want to do that, there's nothing you can do about that. And so that's where we will rehome dogs.
Right.
And, for example, we gave away a dog just yesterday to a gentleman who, he wants to run on a little scooter with the dog he had already and go 3 to 5 miles. And this dog, really would benefit from a lower pressure environment, and she was just a really good fit for him.
Right.
So we'll always make those calls.
Great. And do you find that people that come and do the chores with you fall in love, and you have a opportunity to rehome some of those dogs with them as well?
Yes and no. I mean, it can be a bit of work to try to find homes. It can't just be any home.
Yep.
It's got to be a good fit for what they're hoping to do, and some of our older dogs will just move on as just straight pets, and that works out really well for people because older dog is so much calmer.
Right.
Conversely, we have the opposite problem of people will call us and they bought a Siberian Husky puppy, and then that puppy turned to be a year old and got to be a lot of work, and they're like, oh, it's just got too much energy for us. We want you to have it.
Yeah.
And of course, that pet bred dog would never work here. So, but
right.
So it's important to find the right fit for the right dog, and that's not always easy, but it's just a constant part of our job.
Sure. And do you have your own breeding program, or do you go outside of what you have to get new dogs in?
Yes, we do both.
Okay.
We do get we do get several dogs from racing kennels that don't make the cut. However, so many sled dog racing kennels have gone to thinner-coated dogs that just are not suited for doing tours. You know, they've got to have that nice, thick, husky double coat in order to really be able to sleep outside. So we're not a good fit for a lot of those race dogs. So we've actually, the last few years, found ourselves breeding more than we have in the past.
Okay. Because the in those kennels, those dogs are not having to be out in the elements as much?
That's exactly right. Yeah. You know, they're so focused on their the different types of races and the speeds, and you know, they can jacket dogs when it gets colder, and they always get to be in their dog houses or dog trucks at night, and
right.
And so, you know, if we're doing camping trips and that's not possible, you know, they need to be built for what they're doing.
Sure. Okay.
Personality-wise, what kind of natural skills are you looking for in dogs that do that job?
Well, it's just they got to have a natural desire to go. And the way I simply phrase it is, you know, if you've ever seen a Labrador chase a tennis ball, but you've never seen someone teach a Labrador to chase a tennis ball, they just sort of do it. They're genetically programmed for, you know, that kind of retrieving.
Yep.
You take our dog, you throw a tennis ball, they run over and they sniff it. It's not food. They just come back without it. But then to continue the analogy, you have to teach that Labrador the details, like give me the ball nicely and don't go after it until I tell you to, you know, things like that. And so we have to take that natural desire to go, and then we work on those details with the dogs to become better sled dogs.
Gotcha. And when you're looking at that, as far as with the young dogs coming up, what kind of traits do you see in that would continue that dog into that career?
So the most important is the desire to go. They want to go, and then you want them to have a good physical confirmation that they're going to be able to pull effectively, not be prone to injuries that way. We want them to have a good coat. We want them to have tough feet. Beyond that, we have a lot of variety in our dogs. You know, we've got some dogs that are a little shyer, some that are much more gregarious. We've got dogs that are good fits for being up front and being lead dogs. We've got dogs who are absolutely not good fits for that. So we can accommodate a lot of traits based on, you know, how we'd run them and where we'd run them and things of that nature.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I really found a fascination with the sled dogs is the positions and the placings within the pack as far as their the team goes. Can you go into that a little bit more? You have your lead dog.
Right. So the lead dogs up front, that's your dog team. I mean, that's your best dogs are going to be up there, and they are going to have a lot of willingness to please, and you're going to have to really work with them and bond with them, because they are going to be what's making that dog team a team, not just 6 dogs in front of a sled.
Right.
And then, you know, on a smaller team, it's not so much of a bigger difference. But if you were running, say, a larger team, you know, like 12 dogs or so, the point dogs, which are right behind the lead dogs, or they're also called swing dogs, they, you know, they're going to be dogs that are going to help those leaders keep them up front. They're going to be dogs who you might be training to be leaders.
Okay.
And then the back dogs, the ones in front of the sled, the wheel dogs, they're going to, you know, that's kind of their power is going to be more efficiently transferred to moving the sleds. That's where you want to put your really strong dogs. Now, in the olden days, when you were, like if you went back to Gold Rush days and you were freighting with the dogs, they would actually teach those wheel dogs to pull to one side or the other. So if you were going around a sharp corner, with a tree there that your sled would be prone to hit, they would pull to the outside of the corner to help you keep the sled from hitting that tree.
Okay. And do you as you're building the teams and building them up, as far as, do you test them in this different areas, or you guys know, I mean, obviously you've been doing this long enough to know, like, well, this dog's going to be, great up front versus in the back. Do you know that, or are there some dogs that you try in different positions to see where they work the best?
You definitely have to try.
Okay.
I've got some good experience. I've been doing this for about 30 years, so I can make some educated guesses. But what I like to always tell folks is, I used to think I knew a lot about dogs, but the more I've been around them, the more I realize how little I know about them.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So I always give dogs a chance to prove me wrong on my opinions.
Yeah.
And then they change over years. But one of my very best lead dogs right now, he did not want to be a lead dog until he was 5 years old, and now he's just spectacular. He absolutely had no interest in it, and then one day he just did it. And I was in a tough situation. I thought, well, I'll try him up there, and he's done great. So you also have to accommodate those changing, how they might change. Or it could be the opposite. We've had lead dogs who are just, they're tired of it, and you've got to just not use them anymore.
What would you say is the most challenging thing about training dogs for sled teams?
The most challenging is, that's a toughie. There are so many. I would say the biggest unique challenge to dog teams is when you've got, a crew of dogs that you're out with, and you're trying to work with one characteristic with an individual in among that crew. So for example, the non-snow years will run large teams, 14 to 18 dogs in front of ATVs. And we're running on these Forest Service roads, so it's very important to run on the right side of the road just for safety if anyone else should be out there. And, you kind of have to ignore the rest of the team for a while as you teach a new dog to run on the right side of the road. So that could be a big challenge.
Sure.
It can also be a very big challenge that they want to go so badly that it's, you've got to get their attention to listen to what you're trying to do.
Right. What are some of the questions that people, as people come in to go on an adventure with you, what are some of the questions that they ask?
Well, a lot of what you've been asking, they'll ask how we feed them, and they ask the same questions you are about training, and they'll ask about, they'll be here and they'll see how different they look. That's another big thing that they, because we run the Alaskan Huskies, not the Siberian Huskies, so they're lesser known in the regular world.
Yeah.
And, because they've never been bred for a kennel club or anything, they haven't been made to look alike. So,
right.
All we care about is their performance. So when you come here, we'll have black dogs, white dogs, brown dogs, mottled dogs, upright ears, bent ears, blue eyes, brown eyes. So they can be very dramatically different in looks.
Sure. And that's, the Siberian Huskies, I have found really don't have what it takes in general. So I was curious as far as the breeding goes and what the norm is as far as what people are using for sled dogs.
I'm sorry, I missed that question.
Yeah, so I was definitely, the looks are different. And I was curious if people were wondering if they were crossbred or.
Yes, right. There's definitely of those two kinds, the Siberian and the Alaskan. Alaskans go back to the village dogs of Alaska, there's no reason other things can't be bred into them, so there's stuff behind them that's different.
Yeah.
And, some people actively put different things in for that hybrid vigor. The Siberian Huskies are still used a lot for pulling sleds as well. However, I'll say that like the Siberians bred to be sold as pets are much, much different than the Siberians that they get used as sled dogs, and not necessarily like in looks, but just what's between the ears and their desire to go, which is very common. I mean, you look at the to go back to labs, the labs that are bred for the field trials are quite different than the labs bred just to be given away as pets.
Yep. Yeah. Now, and I'm asking this for all of our listeners out there, where and how does the Malamutes fit into these northern breeds and working and pulling sleds? Because I think that, a lot of people will think that it's more of the Malamute than the Husky that works.
Right.
And so what information do you have there that you can share? Yeah,
so, the Alaskans are the most common dogs used for sled dogs. That you've got the Siberians, the Malamutes, and the fourth main breed would be the Canadian Inuit dogs. And the Inuit and the Malamutes, they were kind of originally, the different tribes that kind of bred them were on the kind of the coasts.
Uh-huh.
So they are much larger, much thicker coats that can handle those harsher, very, very extreme environments.
Uh-huh.
And they pull great, but they don't go very far.
Sure.
They go kind of slower, so that they don't cover the ground like the Alaskan Huskies and the Siberians, which are a narrower, slighter frame. I mean, if you look at I'm a bigger guy, and you look at me compared to a marathon runner, I just can't cover the ground.
Right.
So that's kind of how they fit into it.
Gotcha. What does a day in a life look like for you, as far as what you start in the morning and just going through your care for your dogs and the job?
Well, in a winter day when we have people coming, we're up early. We're we have to do all the basic chores. We feed our dogs first. They get a ground meat with a 32 protein, 32 fat dog food, so a lot more oomph to it than you would give to a pet.
Sure.
We put that all in buckets and add water, and so it's kind of a nice big stew. In the wintertime, you can't really leave buckets out there of water. They're going to freeze.
Yeah.
So whenever we're giving food, we're giving water at the same time, and so it's baited, so they'll drink it right away.
Sure.
And so we feed them in the morning, and then we're doing kennel care of scoop and poop and that kind of stuff, and then we have the groups come and we're dealing with them all day. The evenings we'll do extra chores, like if we need the beds, put straw in houses, clipping toenails, those kinds of things. And we also have those extra jobs on quieter days. We'll have people out working on those.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, a big evening meal as well. We try to average 1 day off.
Okay.
For every 3 days on for our dogs. And on those days off, we'll oftentimes feed a lunch. We don't usually do it when we're running all day, just because that food in their stomach is,
not good.
They can end up throwing that up, and that's just not good.
Yep.
And then in the non-winter season, we'll train with ATVs. So usually then you're more worried about your temperature your dogs are running in.
Uh-huh.
So usually in the non-winter season, we'll run first and then do feeding and chores, because we want the coolness of the early morning.
Sure. And do you guys offer anything in the summertime, spring, summer, or is that just your guys' downtime and training time?
Yeah, we do not do any of the summer summer tours with people. It's just us out here for that.
And where are you guys located at?
We're in northern Minnesota, about 15 miles from the Canadian border.
Okay. My husband grew up in Minnesota.
Yeah. Yeah, we're right up against the Boundary Waters Wilderness area, so just really remote, good access to forests
Yeah,
to run in.
that's great.
What do you find the most rewarding about your job?
It's just, to me, the most rewarding is to see what these dogs can become. I mean, to have a dog that's a puppy running around, and just a few years later where you're so in tune you can barely say anything, and you could cross a lake that has no path on it as a lead dog. I mean, just where, to digress a little bit, one of the things I like to say is, humans got where they are today because of our relationship with working animals. And the pets, which are great, it's not the same relationship. You're not accomplishing a task with them. And when you do these different types of activities, whether it's a dog or a horse or whatever, and you're working together and you become a team to accomplish this task, that to me is the most rewarding. I mean, you'll have things where it'll be a little bit of a new experience where we're having a tough goal. To give you a story quick, from a couple weeks ago, we were exploring an area and we couldn't find the portage between two lakes, the trail between two lakes, because a fire had been through there a couple years earlier. And where these dogs were just normally just crazy to pull through things, they were listening to this, hey, let's take it easy, we got to figure this thing out. And they were going slower than they would normally do, and they were being more patient than they normally would be, because they were just picking up on what I wanted them to do and quickly learning new ways of doing the same thing they've done, just because we're in a new situation, but they're used to picking up on what I'm saying, and so they quickly learn new things almost instantly at that point. And that is, to me, the most rewarding part of it.
Yeah, that is, it's hard to describe until you experience and feel that for sure. For sure.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you would, suggestions that you would give just the average dog owner to do, or advice that you would give from your standpoint with their own dogs?
The two things that I really think where people make mistakes with their pets is a lot of times having just one dog. I mean, they are a pack animal, and you see these people that have one dog. It's in the apartment all day alone for 8-9 hours, and that bothers me a bit. The second thing is do something with your dog. Where your dog has a job. We always gripe about work, but if we didn't have our work, we really would go stir crazy.
Right.
And, to go back to that situation I was talking about earlier, where we'll have people who have these yearling Siberian Husky pets and they're just ripping apart their house, I always talk to them about doing something like agility, where you're working together and they're getting out and they have not just exercising their body, but exercising their mind.
Yeah.
Because these dogs have amazing minds that need to be exercised just as much as their bodies do. And if they can do something like, agility or, pulling them on something where they have a job, that'll just settle them down in the house.
Sure.
And make them a better pet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what, one thing that we really drive is creating purpose for their animal, and not just teaching the basics of obedience, but having a purpose and doing something more purposeful. Even when you're out hiking, having a purpose, not just moseying on along, hoping to find somebody along the way. So it's been a real common thing that everybody that we have talked to in the careers of working with dogs is giving their dogs something to do and having purpose for them instead of just owning a pet.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more.
What's the best way to get a hold of you and your website and we'd love to promote and push your business and what you do and give people that experience. And I for sure will be experiencing your place sometime soon, I hope.
Well, that sounds great. Would love to meet you in person. Our business can be found at whitewilderness.com. Just all one word, whitewilderness.com.
Perfect. We will. I'll let you know when this posts, and we'll have it up on our social media. And we really appreciate your time and talking with us. And we will meet sometime soon.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.